Well, Bob, I visited your classroom. I saw you teach an Algebra 2 lesson. My notes show me that you've gone clearly, step by step, through that lesson with the students. You presented the examples, and you showed the students how to work the examples, and I realized that this is because it was a review lesson to be used prior to the test that you're going to give them next time. I saw you use the overhead projector, and you used that equipment correctly. You sat and you faced the students so that you could have eye contact. Then you worked the problems on the overhead, and they could see the problem on the screen. One of the things I noticed was you were going to collect their homework, and then one of the students made a comment about studying their homework for the test tomorrow. You made a good decision to allow them to keep their homework papers. You stopped two things from happening. One was a voice or a vocal outcry by them that how can we study, but you also did something else when you did this. You gave them the opportunity to study their material. So you stopped the thing about, I don't have my paper, so I couldn't study. The other thing that this showed was flexibility. When the student made the comment about we need to study our homework, you just didn't say, well, I just said I want the homework handed in. You were flexible. You said, okay, keep the homework for tomorrow. At one point, you actually made an error in your mathematics. You caught it, you corrected it, and you didn't make a big deal out of it. You didn't say, oh, I made a mistake, and go on and on about it, or you didn't act silly or stupid or you know, apart from what's going on, and you didn't let the students react to it. Because you caught it, because you corrected it, and you went on, you were seen as knowing your math. You saw an error, you corrected your error. And that's very good. How would you have taught this lesson differently?
Well, I was thinking about perhaps using a less traditional approach involving note cards, where you hand note cards out to each student, so that each student will be able to respond to a certain part. It's set up so that one student replies to the other student, replies to the other student, and it works around. It should go over the entire lesson.
And so they hand these cards from one to the other?
No, they keep their card for their first time around. We might trade if we have time.
And tell me what they're doing on the card again. Say that again.
Well, the card it's set up as I have. It'll have an answer in the upper left corner, and then they'll say something like, I have 22. So then who has, 5 plus 7 as a trivial example. And then whoever has 12 will say, I have 12.
I see. And so it's almost a fun or game.
Yeah, it's sort of a combination game sort of thing.
So they're working their math problems in a different alternative way, as you said.
Yeah.
Good, yeah. If you were to teach the exact lesson you taught, the way you taught it, it would be a repeat. It would be the same thing. But how would you teach this lesson? If you teach next year the same lesson, how would you teach it differently? What changes would you make?
Well, student participation I've got to get down. I've been floating the questions out there, so whichever student knows it will answer, but some of the students are getting left out.
Oh, I noticed when you said that, can't think of his name, I'm not sure I heard it, but the young man that had the purple shirt on toward the front, he would answer quite a few of your questions that you were doing on the overhead transparency. Then when you turned to the homework, he didn't have any, so he quit answering. That's one of the problems we have. They answer the things they know, and then they kind of cover up sometimes when they haven't got their homework. To the side of him were some other young men, and they were also responding, and you had good rapport with them, at least it seemed like to me. What other kind of changes might you have made?
Oh, well, I need to work on their names. That's part of the reason the active participation isn't much. I can't say Joe asks, what's the answer to this, because I can't remember his name. That's no good. Names really don't stick to me very well. I've got to keep studying them and studying them.
This sort of goes along with the whole thing about praise. What kinds of, I heard you say to one student, let me look, good answer, and to another student, that's right. What kind of praise responses do you give them? Names can be used, when you say their name, it's a connection, and then you smile, and that's sort of a praise. What kind of feedback that's positive in terms of praise do you give them?
Yeah, it's usually the body language. Look at them, smile, grin, say, good shot, nice going. Some such thing, depending on what's going on.
Do you ever give them any kind of nonverbal positive, like nodding up and down?
Yeah,
yes,
nodding, smiling,
smiling,
making eye contact.
You're talking about involving students more, and the few times I heard you say their names, and you are correct, you didn't say their names very many times. The few times I heard you say their names, the students did pick up. And so when we're talking about involving those specific students more, what I'll look for next time that I come visit, I'm going to look for and listen for the use of more student names. Do you know who those students are by name? I'll listen for more positive verbal feedback. Can you say positive things to the students? I'll watch to also see that you're not making errors in your math. It happens. We don't want that to happen, and you did a correct thing by correcting your errors, but we don't want to have errors if we can avoid it. Things I'm going to look for, as I mentioned a moment ago, you responded to the young men, and you seem to have a rapport with some of the young men. The young ladies, one young lady, let's see, sitting by me responded to you, and you accepted her answer in that you heard it, but you didn't really say, good answer. You didn't really respond to her in a positive way. You basically just looked back at the overhead. The research is telling us that female students do less well than male students, partly because the teacher, and it's female and male teachers, do not expect as much from the females and do not interact with the females, do not praise as much. So I would like to watch for that. Are you interacting more? Is there a reason why you might not have interacted with the females as much? Is there?
Well, was it toward the end of the lecture?
Yeah,
I was getting kind of rushed toward the end. We had 5 minutes shorter class that time. I was trying to make sure I got through everything.
And so you just shorted your responses?
I was just shorting my responses. I was starting to forget about the students almost entirely, except for ask them the question, don't even hardly look up, and then they answer, and I'd move on.
That's what I noticed. The males were responding at the beginning of the lesson, and the females started responding at the end of the lesson. And that has to do with a comfort level of the girls in the class. I think I'll watch also for you making contact with the girls at the beginning of the class. We don't want to get too formal and say for every boy you get a response from a girl, but I'll watch to see that you interact or ask or praise the girls at the beginning of the class. What I did see today was a good review lesson. The content was appropriate for mathematics. The weak spot of the lesson was the interaction, or what we call the educational part, the pedagogy of the lesson. The use of names, the interaction of the girls, a few errors. Those are the things we need to clean up. So when I come next time, what I want you to do, and you can jot these down, I want your full lesson. I want all of the things that you're going to say and do that you can construct in advance.
Each question.
Each question for each of your problems. Second thing I want you to have down is, to help you, is a list of praise responses. You did use the ones, that's right, good, that's correct. I do have a list of 30 other ways to give praise. I'm going to give you that list, and then I want you to be able to use those praise responses during the class. And then the third thing I'm definitely going to watch for at the very beginning of the class is your interaction with the girls. Those are all important things. I saw a good lesson. It needs strengthening in terms of the interactions.
Now, when are you going to be coming back?
I'll be coming back in 3 weeks, but we need to check your calendar to make sure that this is going to work with you. So turn to your calendar.
It's down in the room.
All right, let's go down to your room, get the calendar, and we'll set the date, okay?
Okay.